The mind games have started. I watched the Ten Hag press conference earlier, and I was quite shocked at what he actually said. Did you manage to catch it at
I've
all?
not caught it, no.
Yeah, so he mentioned all the usual stuff. So they were going through, like what do you think of Newcastle, and what the job that Eddie Howe's done. And he gave the usual answers. Yeah, great team, great manager. They've got a clear philosophy and everything like that. But he also mentioned how annoying as they are. He didn't actually say it.
Wow.
He said how annoying they are. That's the exact word that he used. He referenced time wasting. He referenced them having the ball in play the least out of any Premier League team. He mentioned how Man United are going to have to focus on what they're doing while the ball's in play, not to let them distract us. I couldn't believe what he was saying because, like, normally you kind of like play it off, you don't want to rile up the opponents, but I couldn't believe that he literally said annoying like a number of times. Just what your thoughts on those comments, and do you think
Um,
it's a fair assessment?
we've played him, and
Yeah,
they absolutely do take the piss when it comes to time wasting. There's no, but if Chelsea did it when Chelsea used to do it in their heyday, everyone was like great game management. There's
yeah,
absolutely got to be a bit of nastiness about you. If you're telling me Man United aren't going to waste time late on in the game when they're ahead, or when they're scraping a draw to get away from a tough game, absolutely every team in the
every
world will do
team
it.
does.
Every
Yeah,
top team does it. So for them to go in and focus on that point, see, if he was playing against someone that he thought he was comfortably going to beat, you'd never bring anything up like that. You just wouldn't.
mm,
He knows for a fact Newcastle are a threat because there's not a lot in this game. It could quite easily go either way.
yeah.
But I've not heard those comments, so it's really interesting for me to hear them and say, "Wow, that's." I mean, some would say he's riled, but I mean, I don't think he shouldn't be because obviously, they're getting the sort of rub of the green at the moment. They're playing well, so everything that's going well from Rashford scoring goals for them, and they've got the opposition number one, probably the best keeper this season as in the league is not playing for Newcastle. So everything that could go well for Man United is actually going well for them. You know what I mean? Newcastle a little bit of a dip as well. So I'm surprised that I really am, but maybe it just gives you an insight into the way he sort of thinks it's the right way to go about winning a big game. Who I don't know.
Maybe, maybe I'm over sensationalizing it, but I can guarantee you that's going to be in the news tomorrow.
Yeah,
The fact that he has called them annoying, and it was, to be fair to him, he did, give them plaudits throughout, like, the typical
yeah,
stuff
yeah.
that you would expect, like Klopp or Guardiola to say how fantastic a job that another club has done. But I was so surprised because you don't need any more motivation, especially in a final for Newcastle, who haven't won in, I think you said 67 years
Yeah.
earlier. But do you think it's like a little bit of mind games towards the referee already? Do you think he's using a bit of experience on that?
I mean, it's an interesting one. I mean, I'd get that if Newcastle were playing a team that would always dominate the ball and look, just basically suffocate them. So whenever they play Man City or Liverpool, they generally just, play low block, play on the break, and time waste when it's appropriate. Man United really haven't been. They've won games, but you can't say they've been unbelievably convincing because they've been pouring first halves and they've had Rashford to get them out of shit in second. I just think it's a strange one. It's like if you dominate the ball, you want the ball to stay in play all the time. Man United haven't really been playing like that. Even when they're playing the weaker teams. So, I mean, someone like, I know Klopp's mentioned it in one of his press conferences when they played Newcastle, just after Newcastle. He's like, it's really smart. Uh, I just don't get it. I think it's just trying to get anything who's at elite level, any little thing you can do to get that little edge for your team. You're going to do it. You're going to say whatever it takes to get your team. That small little 1 or 2%ers. That's all it takes to win those big games. But I don't think it'll make the slightest bit of difference to Eddie Howe or
No.
Newcastle United. It's not like he's playing Sunday League players. These are professional football international
Yeah.
players. So I think it'll just be the thing I'd be taking away from a Newcastle player perspective will be I can't believe he said that. He must really sort of be worried about us, It's an
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah.
That's the way I'd be looking at it. But I mean, I've not watched the news conference again. It might just have that one sentence that you don't want it. We've seen plenty of Klopp and Guardiola press conferences where a comment just gets blown out of proportion. I hope it's not that, and it's a bit more. But we'll see.
Yeah, so onto the
I mean,
actual
I've literally missed it because I've been putting a table together. You've seen it as well. I did it wrong, and I've had to put it again.
I did have a structure to this. You know, we were just going to go back and forward. We're going to discuss Man United. We're going to discuss Newcastle, their roads to the final, and also our predictions on what we think is going to happen on the day. So before I go into that, obviously do all the usual stuff like comment, subscribe. You know all that by now. Getting on with it. Getting into the final, Manchester United, I'm just going to reel off their results. They beat Aston Villa 4-2 at home, beat Burnley 2-0 at home, beat Charlton 2-0 at home, and beat Nottingham Forest over 2 legs 5-0. It is, you know, it's a nice run to get to the final, especially with it, like, you know, having home fixtures. It's going to be potentially their first trophy in 6 years since Jose Mourinho won the Europa League with them. How important do you think for Ten Hag to end that trophy drought, and also what credit do you give Ten Hag for potentially winning a trophy in his first season?
I mean, we can say whatever we want about the run Man United have had. I mean, it's piss easy. They've had everything's at home. They've had played Forest. You've got to play them away one part of the game. They played Forest, who were pretty abject in both those games. I mean, Burnley. I mean, it's an absolute dream running it. So, you've regardless of your run, regardless of what trophy it is, especially your first trophy, if he gets that over the line for him, it's a big one for himself. And it's a big one for the players, but most importantly, I think it's the biggest one for the fans because it gives them that belief. Because at the moment, I mean, I've got plenty of, we both know we've got plenty of Man United mates, and one of the ones who knows about the game, and I respect his opinion. He made a couple of really good points. It's the first time I've enjoyed the football since Fergie left as a Man United fan. And that's a big thing to say. And he gives it, you know, there's a bit of belief in the team, and he understands it. And I'd imagine that most sort of sensible Man United fans will be the same. They're like, yeah, we're winning games, but we're still not there. You know, there's a way to go. But a trophy is absolutely massive and it's huge. We know as Liverpool fans, you know, that first trophy is massive. Guardiola, and I mentioned it the last one as well, last podcast. That first trophy is really big. So credit absolutely will need to go to Ten Hag if he gets this over the line and wins it. But there will always be that. Oh, it is the easiest trophy out of all 4, but it's important you get it. I mean, we say it's easy. Most teams generally put the strongest teams once you get to quarters and semis, but they've obviously had a really nice run. But that's not their fault. Man City have had plenty of nice runs as well, and they've won it. You know, people don't. So I think it's really important. But again, looking at the flip side, it's equally as big, and you know, it'd be huge for Newcastle because Newcastle, these two teams will be challenging. You know, in the next, you know, if Man United stay on the same sort of trajectory, and you know, they get rid of the deadwood and stuff. Whereas Newcastle, you know, the investment's coming, and they'll be challenging for the top honours. So this might not be the, you know, only final in the coming years, but I think credit both deserve, you know, both teams and managers absolutely deserve credit because Newcastle were almost relegation threatened last season, weren't they? And Man United are just obviously they've had managers before and it's could be in a car crash. So absolutely massive. He deserves the credit if they do a job, so that'll be cool.
Yeah, I was again in his press conference. I was quite impressed with another thing that he said. He said it's not a success. Like even if he wins it, it's a route to success. And I think he understands. You know, like, you know, this isn't the be all and end all. It's obviously it's not the end goal. Like you said, it's the weakest competition of them all. And you know, one trophy does not make a success of a manager. You know, you think of Jose Mourinho's time at Manchester United. Obviously, he went on to win the Europa League, and he's one of the most successful managers going. And he just couldn't quite get it to continually work to the point where he was pleasing the fans, he was pleasing, you know, I'm presuming the board, he was falling out with them. So it doesn't necessarily mean that just because they win this, it's going to be different, but it does feel slightly different. Like, you know, other than them false storms that they've had previously, they've had good spells under probably each manager at some point, if you think about it. Ole had a good run. For sometimes that, you know, the slot machine manager over and over again. So yeah, this one, I must admit, it does feel a little bit different. On to Newcastle, equally, we're just going to talk about Eddie Howe and what he's done. Newcastle's run to the final, they beat Tranmere 2-1 away. They beat Crystal Palace on penalties at home. They beat Bournemouth 1-0 at home, and they beat Southampton on aggregate 3-1 in the semi-final. So slightly harder run, but by no means was it a difficult run. But equally, obviously, you've got to beat whatever's in front of you. But what do you reckon to Eddie Howe? Would you say that he's way ahead of where he's meant to be at this stage?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you ask Newcastle, I mean, you always felt with the investment coming in, it's no secret they will be challenging for the Premier League in the next few years. What they've achieved this season so far, they're so far ahead of schedule. It's ridiculous. I mean, there's still a lot of average players in that team. That is just Eddie Howe for me is the best English manager out there. And the thing with Eddie Howe as well is not a manager who'll just buy players in and then he's not a checkbook manager. He improves players. So you look at the players that are already there. Like Sean Longstaff's a really good player, but I mean, my mate used to play with him and he was always just singing his praises. But he's obviously improved and he's now a regular. Joe Willock wasn't as good as this when he was there. Miggy Almiron was absolutely not as good as this when under the previous managers. Even Sam Maximum's raised his game. And then he's obviously realised that there was a weakness in Jamal Lascelles playing as club captain there, and that was a big blow. So things like that, absolutely massive. So yeah, what the job he's done, I think, is just phenomenal. I mean, for me, if Newcastle get in the top 4, he's the manager of this year. Absolutely, no doubt. Yeah,
absolutely, by far. So moving on to the team news for the final. There's not too many missing for either team, but obviously the biggest news after yesterday's cup final, obviously we'll move on to Karius at one point and Newcastle's goalkeeping problems. But the Rashford, he went on late in the game, around about just before the 90th minute. I don't know whether it was some kind of an impact injury, but Ten Hag in his press conference mentioned that he's unsure if Rashford will make it for Sunday's game. Now, obviously, bear in mind, Rashford will be absolutely raring to go. Do you think he won't want to miss this? But B, what's the importance of Rashford to this United team at the moment?
I mean, I'll eat my hat if he doesn't play. He took him off like the 89th and 90th minute, but Scott McTominay on trying to park the bus against Barca for the last few minutes. There's absolutely zero chance Marcus Rashford isn't fit for that game. If he is, I'll put my hand up and I'll say he's not an absolute wind-up merchant. But Marcus Rashford will be fit for that final. There's no injury to him. He went off fine. It's like, make it look like an injury as soon as you're coming off, just to give Newcastle. I mean, do you think Newcastle...
Something to think about, yeah.
See, I mean, this sort of thing, I always think, I mean, years ago, 20, 30 years ago, maybe you'd be like, all right, yeah, he's not playing. Now, clubs have got that many analysts and, technical departments just loaded with coaches and analysts. Like, you'll just look at that and you'll go, right, you'll work out for every eventuality. You're playing with Rashford, is he going to play? Is Rashford playing? Yes. Is he playing left wing? Is he playing up front? Absolute wild shot. He might be playing on the right, might be playing at 10. The last two probably not going to happen. They'll work out for both those eventualities. They'll work out if he doesn't play as well. This is going to be the team. They'll go through everything. I mean, I'm sure Ten Hag will do exactly the same. So that's not going to make a difference to Newcastle's planning. But Marcus Rashford will be playing in the final. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah. For those of you that are regular viewers, you'll have seen that we obviously covered Loris Karius and Newcastle in our previous podcast. I think it was on Monday or Tuesday, so go and check that out. I'll put a link to it up here somewhere. And we talked at length about obviously Nick Pope getting the red card, Karius potentially coming in. So I watched Eddie Howe's press conference as well. I think that was a couple of days ago, and he was mentioning how he didn't actually know who was going to be in goal out of the two keepers, but he kept on leaning. Like, there was certain things that he was saying that were absolutely leaning to Karius. He talks about to have a keeper of Loris's experience. He's got no doubt about his confidence levels. So to me, everything that he was saying was leading towards. Every now and again, he'd throw in Mark. Is it Mark?
Mark Gillespie, yeah.
Mark Gillespie, yeah. Every now and again. I think that's what Eddie was doing at one point. Yeah, Mark. Yeah. But so it
the
does
other
look
one.
like, the other one. So it does look like he's going to be the goalkeeper. Obviously, without going into too much detail, because I want people to go and click on the other video. What do you think about the Manchester United strategy and thoughts towards him being in goal? Bearing in mind as well, another thing from the press conference, they asked Ten Hag, would you target Karius, because of what's happened with him previously. And, most people would tend to say, no, he's a quality keeper, that kind of thing. Ten Hag is just balling out with answers. It's absolutely brilliant. He says, we have to test it. That's what he said. We have to test it. Is that what you were saying? Would be saying as a manager, like, just you've got to just pepper him early on, test him out.
You've obviously got to. I mean, I always think it's a funny one. So the best example I can give you. So say you're playing in a normal game, right? We're both playing. You 60 minutes in, you've got your goalkeeper sent off, but you don't have a goalkeeper sub. One of the outfield players is going to go in goal. So what you do is you're not going to tell your players to have more shots because you've still got to get in good areas to have shots. You're not going to shoot from like 50 yards. You've still got to get the ball. You've got to work the way up. Whether it's crosses or even if it's, the only thing I always think whenever you've got, like a vulnerable keeper is to get a load of, because it's easier to get crosses in than it is to get shots on target.
Shots, yeah.
So I always think get crosses, just make him feel the ball, try and feel the ball. Do you know what I mean? Don't let him get some easy ones, you know what I mean, down the road. Don't let, a ball going straight through so he can easily just pick it up and that's it. And he can get play, you want those, you want to test him, but you've still got to have good possession to test him. Because if Newcastle start on fire for the first 20, 25 minutes, they're all over Man United. It's not great. Ideally, what you want to do is in the first 5 minutes, first 5 minutes, really make him do something a bit dodgy that puts that doubt in his mind. Because it's a lonely place being a goalkeeper. I mean, I've done it a couple of times. I'm no goalkeeper at all. It's a lonely place because most of the time you're watching, and then if you've made a mistake, you're thinking, "Ball, don't come near me." But I think it's really tough. I mean, you've got to really dominate the opposition, and then then that's the way you can put pressure on them as well.
So effectively, what you're saying is, it's not necessarily, like you say, it's on Newcastle to protect that keeper as much as possible, and they do a great job. So,
I mean, they've got the best defense in the league, haven't they? So it's not like they're gonna. I mean, Man United are probably going to play Weghorst up front, so you'd think more crosses. I mean, they've not really put a load of crosses in for him, but you'd be thinking like more crosses. But again, Newcastle will be working on the defensive shapers in the back line. If they're pressing high, you've got to get in at good areas from across the ball. You can't just ping them from the halfway line and get diagonals into the other back post. It's just not going to work. It's not like Wimbledon 30 years ago. So the game's got to. You've got to progress the ball right, and you've got a front three of Newcastle. You've got a midfield three of Newcastle that are working really well out of possession. So you've still got to penetrate that, get behind that, get in between the lines, and then if you're going to get shots, get them from outside the box. So ideally, or get the ball wide across. So those little things, they all make a difference. And obviously, if you're playing, depends who your fullbacks are as well. So there's a lot. I mean, I completely get it, but it's such a simple way to sort of say, oh well, we need to target the keeper. Well, how are you going to do it? What you're going to do to do it? He's still a professional goalkeeper at a really good level. It's not like you've got me or you or Callum Wilson going in goal for the last. He knows how to handle a ball.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Like, people are talking like this is Kyle Walker. You remember Kyle Walker when he was in goal? I just remember, when you were saying it's not a case of shooting. I remember anyone that practically got anywhere in that half, they were shooting at Kyle Walker, and he was scrambling across the box. And every time he made the easiest to save, people were like, "Oh, it's brilliant, it's brilliant." And there was no real chances at the end of it. But we're talking about a professional goalkeeper here, so it's more about what you're saying in that it's those early minutes where the ball's going, the defenders are playing the ball back to him. It's on Bruno, it's on the other players to chase it down, to make on his touch, those type of things.
What you sort of want is that it's a really good example of that. So if the ball goes back to him and it's a simple back pass, and you want, as a keeper, you just want to launch it, don't you? Want to be what you want him to do is to slice it or shank it, because that'll just put doubt under on your mind, and it'll just he's thinking about it. Then he's like thinking, oh my god, if I've done that with my foot, and I don't want the ball next time in your hand. So all those little things. I mean, having said that, we've had Alisson, who's probably the best keeper in the world, throw an absolute howler. Like, he's done 2 or 3 this year. David Gea yesterday, and he's like, Courtois did it as well. So you got top keepers do it, but it's the difference between a normal keeper and a top keeper is they'll do it and it'll affect them for the rest of the game. For these top keepers, they'll do it and it'll be out of their mind. Next time they'll still get the ball, they'll still try and play and pass it and catch. You know what I mean? So
you are right, and it's also the game in which you do it. No one's saying that Loris Karius, sliding doors. He doesn't do that he does that in a normal game. Then fair enough. He does it in the Champions League final. It's very difficult to kind of brush that one aside. You were talking there about the team and possibly Weghorst starting. I've got some probable and possible lineups here. I'm just going to read the Manchester United possible lineup and just see how accurate you think this is. I don't know where I got it from because I don't agree with this. It's De Gea in goal, Wan-Bissaka, Varane, Martinez, Shaw, Casemiro, Fred, Anthony, Fernandes, Sancho, and Rashford. What do you think of that one first?
I don't think it's far off. I mean, the only thing it'll be either Sancho or Anthony getting dropped and Weghorst starting up front with Rashford on the left. The issue with Rashford on the left at the moment is being out of the game. When Man United are not in the game, they don't have the ball. They can't play the ball too now. Whereas in central areas, it's a bit easy to get involved in the game. Do you know what I mean? If the ball's on one side, whereas and he's changed that at half time twice now as Ten Hag. So he might start with Rashford up front and then go Sancho and Anthony. However, I mean, Sancho's been poor. And I don't think Anthony's great. I know he scored a goal, but I don't think he's. I think he's one of the flops of the season. So he could go Anthony on the right, Rashford left, and Weghorst up front. But he does like Weghorst. So that's it's you have those manic players that are your favourites, and it's a tough one to sort of say. I can see him playing that team, but the only other difference will be either Sancho or Anthony dropped, Weghorst up top, Rashford on left, and one of them two on the right.
I was so for me, there's an argument for both. You know, you've got Weghorst, who, you know, we're talking about putting the keeper under pressure. This guy runs and he runs. He reminds me of like a Dirk Kuyt, where, you know, he's just one of those players which managers love, and he's not necessarily great on the eye, and he might chip in with an important goal every now and again. But then again, obviously, you've got the threat of Rashford. For me, I'd never feel like Weghorst is going to score, and particularly against physical centre-backs like the Newcastle.
Shaw,
Physical centre-backs. They love a fight. They love someone to get hold of. It's obviously, like they always say, pacing behind, a bit of trickery that they're not necessarily going to like to deal with. So for me, I don't know about you, but I would prefer to start with Rashford as your 9. What do you think of Rashford as the 9, or would you go with you personally?
I mean, if Man United are dominating football matches and they're on the front foot and they're playing, you want I have Rashford on the left because he's a bigger threat on the left. But at the moment, they're not free-flowing, fluent. I mean, you can look at the recent games and they say, "Oh, you've scored so many goals," but you've got to analyse the games and watch the games. First half, they've been poor. They've been lucky to be in the game. And second half, they've had moments where even in second half, they're playing in moments at the moment. They're not like, you watch them, you don't think they're in control of the game for the full game. You know, I talk about Liverpool, but we're not in control. Man City, you watch them play, they've got control of the game. And that's the skill what elite teams have. So it's a really interesting one. For me, I think if you've got, you know, a proper centre forward, you'd go, you know, if Martial was fit, for example, I mean, I know he's not, he can be hit and miss, but you'd have Martial up top, you know, Rashford left and Sancho right, and, you know, Casemiro, Eriksen. But it's a tough one. But I mean, at the moment, you still need a threat. So I'd be leaning towards Rashford down the middle, and then play that team that you just reeled off.
Yeah, Newcastle possible starting lineup: Karius, Trippier, Schär, Botman, Burn, Longstaff, Guimaraes, Joe Linton, Almiron, Wilson, St. Maximin.
All you want to change is, and it's a tough one, is a captain, is Wilson, is Isaac for Wilson. Is more of a threat than him. But I mean, again, there's no that's nitpicking, do you know what I mean? The other one that, I mean, is Joe Willock suspended? Is that did you mention him?
No, Joe Willock wasn't in and amongst that. I'm not sure if he's suspended though.
The only thing about that is, I mean, I know when they played before, it was, so what you'd do is you'd play a Willock in midfield, and Linton's been playing in St. Maximin's position. Whereas now, I think to have Alan Saint-Maximin at Wembley, that massive pitch and his pace and just like trickery and unpredictability, I think absolutely is the right thing to do. But that team, I think, you look at it, I mean, it's like, you've got, that's a good team, that. You know, you look at that, that's a better midfield than Man United. Do you know what I mean? So it's just a couple of things there that we've got to, I think, look at and analyse from Man United perspective. I'm listening now what you said with these press conference. I'm thinking, do you know what? He's probably gone through that team. I think that's not a bad side. It's not a bad side at all. I mean, we're talking like Newcastle massive underdogs. They're third, Man United. What, they're fourth, Man United, they're third. It's like there's one place between them. You know?
I think it'll be very close. I think it'll be played out very competitively. I don't think the possession stats will be too far apart from each other, to be honest, especially with Bruno coming back into the team. I'm just closing off. I'm just going to ask you two questions on what both teams need to focus on to win. So we'll start with Man United. What specifically will win them the game?
They need to control the game, because they could do what they've been doing recently, like being really poor first half and playing in moments. I think you've got to control the game, especially at Wembley, because it's so big, and Newcastle have got so much threat in wide areas. I want to say control the ball, control the game, control the ball. And when Newcastle, I mean, there's a common misconception when people say control the game is have the ball and keep the ball at the back and just keep possession. You can still control a game out of possession as well. It's allowing them to play in the right areas.
Rafa Benitez loves that, doesn't he? Like that.
Yeah,
that's the epitome of it.
Yeah. So just control the game, and they've been defensively brilliant as well. But Man United, I think they've just got to control the game and try and start from the beginning as well, because they've been poor. Because they could. I mean, Newcastle, if they take the chances, then they're not going to get another chance, because Newcastle have got a better defense than all the teams they've played in the last 4 or 5 games. So I think it's really important that they start right and control the game, not control the ball, control the game.
Yeah, I think going on to Newcastle, that's one of the points that I was thinking. To what they need to focus on to win is United will give them chances. The Man United gave a lot of chances away recently, and I know it sounds obvious, but taking the chances must be one of the keys. Is there anything else for Newcastle? What you think? Did they win any particular battles?
That's exactly it. I think that take the chances, because they've created a lot of chances, even with 10 men, they had a lot of chances. And as I mean, sustaining the obvious here, but protect carries as much as you can. Do you know what I mean? So if you do give him a back pass, don't give him one on his left foot, fired out like 70 miles an hour. Think about it. Do you know what I mean? Just give him one for nice, easy ones, and a little header back.
10 minutes.
First 10 minutes. The ball comes up, just a little knock back to him, get him to feel the ball. Just those. I mean, these are professional footballers. They know what to do, but just try and think of it as a normal game. That old cliche. I know it's 67 years or whatever it is. Try and get that out of your head and just do it for you. Do it for the fans. But most importantly, do you know what I mean? Do it for Alan Shearer. Do it for Bobby Robson. Do it for Kevin Keegan. Come on, the tune. But I'm completely impartial.
I was going to say that. So that leads me on to my last question for you. How do you see the game going? And I know you don't like giving predictions, but have you got any predictions going into this?
I mean, I don't want to jinx it or anything, but I really, really hope for a Newcastle win.
Likewise. Anyway, good luck to both teams. Yeah. So, thanks for watching on that particular issue. We now probably we're going to go on to probably the main reason why people are staying right till the end. We've been recently.
It's the question of the day.
I don't think we'll get to the question of the day. You start thinking. Yeah, we've done a Prime giveaway for the last 3 videos, and all you had to do was like, comment, and subscribe, and you were in with a chance of winning 2 sparkling bottles of Prime, which are worth about 50 quid each last time we're checking. And our lucky winner who liked, commented, and subscribed was Lydia Jeffrey 04. Now, Lydia, we are going to ask you to get in touch with us. You've got to get in touch with us within the next week. If you do not get in touch with us, then it will go to someone else. It'll go to the next person that Ty just chooses at random. Congratulations on winning those. We'll be sending them out to you as soon as we get your details. So, with that being said, Ty, what do you reckon to the weekend? Are you excited to watch it? Where will you be watching it?
I'll be watching it at home. I mean, so when Liverpool were playing really well, in the last 5 years, apart from this year and the COVID season, I used to have a nice little spot on the sofa. I have just had a brand new carpet put in today, and I might sit on the floor
because it's nice
and it's nice and soft. But absolutely, I'm looking. I am really. I mean, I know obviously we want Newcastle to win, but I'm really interested to see how both teams come along, how both managers come along, because this is a big moment for both clubs. I think. What of the losers, what of the winners? Can they go on and kick on? I think there's a lot of question marks within there as well. I'm just really, I'm looking forward to this final, because there's, it's not normally it's the same same gang in it in the finals. It's always Man City or Liverpool in these finals. So it's good to have a different two teams in it.
It's definitely about who handles the pressure better. I'll quickly finish on think about your question. Eddie Howe mentioned how at the beginning of the tournament, beginning of the AFL run, they focused on the fact that we haven't run a trophy in 60, 70 odd years, and used that as motivation for the fans. But he said, as we've got closer, and this week in particular, I want them to absolutely forget everything that we've tried to use as motivation, so we don't have that pressure on the day, which I think is a good mentality to have. Your question of the day, Matt.
Yeah, question of the day. It's around the managers. It's thinking of this game, but then also sort of thinking longer term in terms of the season moving on. Question of the day is, which one of these two managers will stay at their club the longer?
Ooh, I did not see that one.
Yeah, no, neither did I until like 30 seconds ago.
That's a very good question.
I thought, all right, which team's the win? So what we're going to do is, which manager do we think is going to stay at the club the longer?
Absolutely,
That's really bad English, but you know,
you'll put it along the bottom, yeah. So answer your questions down below, and also, as always, put all your comments and everything like that. We'd appreciate if you give us a like, subscribe, turn on the bell notifications, all that good stuff. Been a pleasure having you. Enjoy the final, whoever you support. Good luck to everyone. See you later, guys.
See you guys.